What's up? I'm Delanie Fisher, and welcome to your Self-Helpless snack. This mini episode is just a little taste of the Self-Helpless podcast. So if you want to dive deeper into the topic, you can find the full conversation linked in this episode's description.
Cover letters, you won't always need to write one. I give her permission if it doesn't. Some of the systems don't even allow for one, in which case you're kind of off the hook. But follow-up is super duper important. But where cover letters are really useful is if you are pivoting at all. You use the cover letter to help connect the dots between what you did and what you're going to do. So definitely write a cover letter. So when you can, or if they say cover letters encourage, always write a cover letter in those situations. If they're opening themselves up to one, you write one. And I know that's making a lot of people groan right now because nobody likes it. But for the most part, cover letters can be fairly straightforward. Like it's an opening that says where what position you applied to, basic qualification. Then it's a few bullets that speak directly to the bullets on their posting. Again, connect the dots. Right. The way I approach it is we want to take as much thinking out of it for them as possible. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to move you forward. And so then it's the opening paragraph, the bullets, and then a close. And that's it for most things. But I will say, one of my clients, she was applying to a local marketing communications company. So she wrote her cover letter in the form of a press release. And it was so fun.
Clever. Oh my God,
so appropriate because it not only shows her personality, but it showed a real skill that she would need to be using in this role. She's been there for many years. So, when you can, adapt, be creative, have fun. So be open to the idea.
That is so great. And I mean, isn't it fine just to have kind of like a template that you just get in there and personalize for the position? I mean, you don't have to start from scratch with every single cover letter, right? Like a lot of the points are probably going to be similar. You can just word them differently.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. If you are starting from scratch with every cover letter or having to spend too much time customizing your resume for each position, then you probably haven't honed your target enough.
Yeah.
And you've kept it too broad.
I've been there. Shelby, I've been there. Like I got 12 cover letters and 12 different resumes for 12 different industries.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I've been there.
Yeah, don't do that to yourself. We haven't even talked about how to preserve your mental well-being during the job search. It's so hard but so important because I think above all else, energy matters in this situation.
It can be so discouraging when you are applying and you're not getting any bites and you're not exactly sure why, right? Because I think, again, we have our self-worth in this society can be so tied up to how we make money. And so people really take it as a rejection of self when they're not getting the interviews or this or that.
I think it's important in that situation, you take a step back and you say, okay, so where in the process is it breaking down? Am I not getting interviews? Well, then maybe I need to tweak my resume. Maybe I need to rethink who I'm applying to or what I'm applying to. Like what needs to happen there? Am I only getting first interviews and no callbacks? Well, maybe I need to get some interview practice in. Maybe I'm not doing my research ahead of time. Be really honest with yourself and with the process, but look at it as objectively as you can. And you might have to do that because, a traditional job search takes months. Right. So you might have to do that, sort of take a step back multiple times and be like, okay, well, now I'm getting to the second interview, but I'm not getting the final the final round. Maybe it's my presentation that is falling short, or maybe, it's that I'm not doing well when I meet with the executive. So how can I improve my executive presence? So there's all these kinds of things. And you can improve all those things. There's people out there to help you. There's friends, there's coaches that will help you with all of that. Right. But you have to be honest with yourself first and figure out sort of where it's breaking down.
Definitely. That's such a great point. Thank you for saying that it takes months because I think that's another thing is like the people, if they're not getting some kind of hits right away, they're, they're going inward of like, what does this mean about me? And then the longer it does go on where it's still not happening, that kind of like job search kind of depression spiral can kick in. Of like, I'm never going to find a job. And like that can really be so detrimental to somebody's mental health. And we're just here to say, you are qualified for something out there, and there are people that can help you find those things and make sure that you're working around all these like loopholes and stuff that you didn't even know about.
Right.
How can you shift up your approach and angle when
Right.
something's not working? Just pivot.
Exactly. And when you start to get in that spiral, when you get all up in your head, like you start losing creativity,
Yeah,
right? So where you would
yeah,
normally be like, oh, I should go to that meetup because those are people that are adjacent to what I want to be doing. Or, maybe I will go to this dinner party tonight to meet people because they all work and they may know somebody.
yeah.
Like you start losing sort of just that openness and that creativity. I think the most important part of a job search is having the belief that you can get a job. When I think of people who struggle and languish in that search indefinitely versus those who actually get something, it's a matter of like belief in themselves. A lot of it, a lot of it. So
So good. And that's why it's so important. Like, hey, if you need to just get something for the time being, because
mm-hmm.
finding the job that you might really want could take many
Yeah.
months or a year or more, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you're going for. It's okay to just take whatever job that you can get and let that be a tool that can help fuel you, and where you can be
Right.
more creative outside of that job. I mean, I remember I was when I was doing stand up, and I realized like I got to get out of this industry. This is not good for my mental health. I took a job in a call center that
Oh,
was not for me, right? But
right.
it provided me with the stability that I needed to dream again of what's
Mm-hmm.
next. And
Mm-hmm.
and and so now I didn't have to worry about where my next paycheck is coming from. What's this, right? It was a 9 to 5, which after having been like a performer who was traveling and making money that way, felt like I was giving up,
Wow.
felt like a
Yeah.
failure, felt like, oh my God, I got to go back to like a conventional job. I'm going to be freaking miserable. It ended up being one of the best jobs I've had, one of the best decisions I've made. Not only was it actually not too bad of a job, but it allowed me that structure of that's where I started my podcast. That's where I built my first business, Dicks by Delanie. That's where things finally took off because I just said I need some stability right now. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean I'm giving up on finding a job that I love, but this is what's needed, and it doesn't mean anything about me that I went from
Yeah.
being on TV to working on in a call center, right? Like,
Actually, what it means is you were giving yourself what you needed, which was the opportunity to take a deep breath. That's
right,
that's all it was. Yeah,
right,
it didn't have to be, some sort of diminishing of your character. It wasn't like it had nothing to
right,
do with that. It's just
right.
you needed that time to regroup, and it's really impressive that you recognized that and that you took that. Yeah.
Well, I wish I recognized it in the moment and was nicer
Yeah.
to myself.
Yeah, you're sharing it out now. So you're helping other
Yeah.
people with that story. I have a related about my 17-year-old son. So he got his first job and he's a bag person at a
Yeah.
grocery store, right? And he's super introverted. And so it took a while, even just to get him to apply, then to get him to go in and meet with somebody. Anyway, eventually he got there, he got the job, he hates it. I basically said, I don't care where you work. The agreement was that you would get a job. I,
Yeah.
I don't care where. So do your best. Like, go get another job.
Yeah.
However, in the meantime, I want you to be incredibly grateful for this job because
Mm-hmm.
it's because of them you will get your next job because now you have work experience. They
Yeah.
took a chance on you. You had nothing to show,
Right.
except for 3 years in marching band, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's all you got to offer.
Well, you
And
can play the cymbals, but can you
yeah,
bag these apples, baby?
exactly. Exactly. In the meantime, just be super grateful. So he took it and he actually did a little bit of searching and he realized, like, as far as jobs that 17-year-olds can get,
Right.
it's not that bad.
Right. Right.
So he doesn't love it, but he knows it serves a purpose. It's not going to be your dream job. I don't even know if a dream job honestly exists,
Oh my God.
right?
My dream job is
I
to not
I
need a
don't think
job.
anyone could love what they do more than I love what I do, but I'd give it up tomorrow if I could spend the day on the beach all the time, right?
Exactly.
So
That's exactly how I feel. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, having fun in my free time is always going to win over a job that I love, and I love it. So,
yeah,
I mean, come on. I think this whole
right.
dream job situation is probably just, capitalist idea trying to fuck with us. But
absolutely.
yeah.
And because to your earlier point, like a job is just like one part of us. It's not all of us. We shouldn't put that much value in it, because then that's when we get all messed up when we're looking for the next job. We place too much importance on what it's going to be.
1,000%. And I think it's so great where it's like, yeah, and whether it's your first job or you're pivoting to a different industry, that might feel like a tough time. It might be a tough pivot where you're kind of starting over in a way where you do have a bunch of experience, but you kind of maybe have to start at an entry level because you don't have experience in that particular company or industry. And it might feel kind of hard. It might feel uncomfortable. And I think we got to remove this idea of having like our job as a status symbol. I got to tell you something. I worked at Trader Joe's for a few years. And some of the happiest people I've ever met work at Trader Joe's.
Right.
They are loving life. And they, I worked there in college, and a lot of people were much older than me and had left careers that they hated or whatever. And they came to work so grateful and so happy. And I'm like, wow, they're onto something. I mean, a lot of these people don't even want the office job with the parking spot. You really got to figure out what makes sense for you and what actually you enjoy. And if people treat you badly because of where you work, fuck them.
They are not your people. Can we just agree? Right. Yeah, they are not your people.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you work at Trader Joe's. I can see that.
Are you finding everything okay, Shelby? What are you making for dinner
What
tonight?
Are you doing this weekend? Yeah. I love it. It is so important, and I completely agree with you that we cannot place all of our value in what we do, because if for no other reason, then we don't always have 100% control.
Yeah, I don't care what you do. It's like, what kind of person are you? You could imagine why I didn't do well at networking parties in the entertainment industry, because I don't fucking care how many followers you have. I don't care what movie you were just in. I saw you being a dick to the wait staff, and now I think you're an asshole. Like, I couldn't care less. And that's how I feel about people's jobs too. What kind of person are you? I don't care that you drive a Porsche. This is another thing about trying not to take things so personally. I interviewed for I once interviewed for a job, and I had 7 interviews over the course of 2 months for a consulting position. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna get this job. And then they went out of business. They closed their doors. So it's like, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, and
you really don't.
Yeah, and it was a bigger company, so it was public. But if I had not seen it, I would have just thought, what happened? Why did they hire me? So that might be happening too, and they're not there's no posts about it, but maybe they went under. Who knows?
Oh my gosh! Or the people didn't agree ultimately on what they wanted for that role, so you're caught up in the middle of that. Or they decided they had to put a hold on it because nobody's hiring right now. Or you're right, you just don't know what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's what you mentioned about the cover letter and using the language that speaks to the role and stuff. It's so funny because with postings that I've had in my own business, they've been very casual, not super like formal things. And so when people would write a message, it was like, oh, by the way, I can do video editing for X, Y, and Z. And I appreciated that because I wasn't using language like Adobe Premiere and this and that, like all the, all the programs. I'm like, if you had said, oh, I'm great with Adobe and this and that, I wouldn't have known what the fuck you're talking about. But when the people that were like, I can do video editing for XYZ, I'm like, I know what that means. It could even be the opposite. You might be very well versed. The person you're applying to isn't, and you have to kind of meet them where they're at. Might be helpful.
You're totally right in that you can often read the tone of the company in the posting. Those are the best postings, right? When you're like, oh, I think I can feel these people. I think I get it.
Yes.
So I like that you did your postings that way because people knew up front what they were dealing with.
Right, exactly.
you're gonna need like to be in a corporate setting, this ain't your gig.
Right.
So,
I mean, I'm swearing in the job post, so I'm telling you who I am right away.
So glad you tuned into Self-Helpless. If you felt supported by this or past episodes, there are a couple ways you can help the show. Feel free to share it with a friend who may enjoy the variety of discussions we have here. Also, you can become a monthly or annual supporter of the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless. That's where you can pitch and vote on topics, submit questions for special guests, or be a silent supporter and not participate in any of that. 100% of Patreon and merch proceeds go directly to operating expenses that not only keep the show going through thick and thin, but also keeps it accessible to all with minimal ads. If you want to show a little extra lovin', you can leave an Apple Podcast review or send an email to share how Self-Helpless has impacted you. All of this info and more goodies can be found at selfhelplesspodcast.com. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.